Hi everybody, Harris here with iDownload Blog, and if there are two things I've talked a lot about, both between this channel and my personal channel, where I talk about more student technology, it would be third-party stylus options and great mice for the keyboard and trackpad support for the iPad. But they've always been separate features and separate products. You have your stylus that you can attach to your iPad, or maybe not, depending on which one you have, and then you have a mouse that is portable or not, and they can both add a lot of functionality to your iPad, but never until now have they been combined into one product. This is the Adonit Note M stylus mouse hybrid for the iPad. Now, I got this sometime last year and I just never opened it, but I've been playing around with it lately, and it's actually a really impressive, versatile product. And let's go ahead and talk about it. Okay, so the first thing to talk about would be the build quality of this stylus. And this is a lightweight, cheap plastic. That's probably the least impressive part of this. It feels a little bit hollow. It's not super sturdy, not premium, not heavy. It doesn't feel like a kind of a sturdy, rugged plastic like the Apple Pencil is, or even that some of the third-party options are that just have a lot more heft. And there are two buttons on the mouse. One is a general power button that also functions to serve as the stylus button. And then the other one is a trackpad used for scrolling, but also works as a left click and a right click. And both of these buttons feel pretty lightweight and cheap plastic, and they don't feel super secure. It's not crappy quality. Like, it's okay quality, but it's just on the lower end of okay quality. Now, this does have a magnet on it, so just like other third-party stylus options. So that means you can attach this to the top of your iPad Pro or your iPad Air, which is great. It is a pretty kind of wide and thick stylus, so certain cases that you might be using that require kind of the slim Apple Pencil shape, this might not work, and it's sturdy enough. Now, of course, because this is just all plastic and doesn't have any super fancy tech in it, it does not have Apple's double tap that you get on the Apple Pencil 2nd generation, so that's something to note. And then additionally, they do not include additional tips for this stylus, so when or if this one wears out, you're going to have to buy additional ones from them. It's $15 to get extra tips, which is kind of steep, I think, for a really cheap product. A little piece of rubber, kind of ridiculous that they don't include even just one extra. They should change that, and hopefully it lasts a while. And then, of course, there's also no pressure sensitivity on this, so you can't get various thicknesses or angles with this. So some of the more advanced styli options out there do have that functionality. This does not. Now, battery is definitely one of the least impressive features of this with the build quality. So it uses USB-C, which is nice, and you can charge this from a USB-C cable connected to your iPad. So that's nice at least, and you can charge this while it's magnetically attached to your iPad with a cable, but obviously it doesn't charge through the iPad. But battery life only lasts a few hours of continuous use. They say about 10 hours of the stylus and like 5 hours with the mouse. So basically, if you're using this a lot, over a couple days you're gonna have to recharge it. So just keep a charger around. You can use the stylus while it's charging, but battery life definitely isn't like a couple weeks or a week or anything like that. If you're using it a lot, it'll be every couple days or so. Now, in terms of the writing experience, this is pretty much just like any of the $30 to $35 third-party styli options out there, which is to say totally fine, right? Responsive, it's going to be accurate enough and pretty precise, so it's a really good writing experience. In terms of the tip, it's a much softer and duller tip than the Apple Pencil. The Apple Pencil is a hard plastic. This one is a slightly softer plastic, a little bit more gentle, a little bit more spongy, but it's still firm, but just softer than Apple's. So if you want to use this as a dedicated stylus for your iPad, whether it be the Mini or the iPad 7 or 8th gen or the Pro or the Air 4th gen, and I think a couple other devices as well, it'll work pretty well as a daily stylus. Again, it doesn't have the double tap for eraser, it doesn't have the pressure sensitivity, and it's not going to charge from your iPads, but otherwise it is a pretty solid stylus. The latency is not going to be as good as the Apple Pencil. It doesn't have that technology, but it doesn't require Bluetooth. You just press the button on the bottom and your iPad will recognize it automatically. And if you have another iPad, you can switch over to that without doing anything else. So that's a really great feature. Now, just a tip, make sure if you have previously connected an Apple Pencil to your iPad and you want to use the stylus, you have to forget the Apple Pencil in your Bluetooth settings, otherwise it won't work with your stylus. But the star of the show with this is when you flip the pencil over and then you press this button and it will go onto the Bluetooth settings and you can connect it in your settings app and use it as a mouse. And it's just called accessory, which is kind of weird. I wish it had a real name, but accessory is connected. And then we have the ability to use the mouse. So you can see the mouse cursor right there. And it works pretty well. So if I want to go into settings, I can. And I can use the scroll pad to scroll. And of course, if you want to customize the settings on here, you can go into general, trackpad and mouse, and you can change the tracking speed, which will change how fast this moves around. And then if you want natural scrolling as well, and then your secondary click. And then you can also go into, where's your accessibility settings, and then you go down to pointer control, and you have a few options here, including changing the pointer size, the scrolling speed, and then if you want to add a color perimeter, you have that option as well. And as you can see, as I'm going through everything, this is really smooth and kind of in control, not an issue for scrolling around. So the laser technology with this kind of shoots it out, and you can use it on pretty much any surface, whether it be a desk or your leg or your hand or whatever. It says 5 millimeters distance, but it's definitely a lot more than that. So you can use it from pretty far away and use it to control your mouse. So I can do it on my hand, as you can see, moving the cursor around just using my hand, or I could just keep the stylus still and move my hand to move the cursor. So if I wanted my arm to actually be in control, so you can see the cursor just because of me moving my arm. So that's kind of how this works. Now, one thing I've noticed is that you do have to be careful that when you're using it, you keep your hand in the same spot and just extend your reach further out. You know, with a typical mouse, when you're using it, you have it down and then you pick it up and move it around when you want to adjust your cursor. With this, if you're trying to adjust the mouse to get to the far corner of your screen and you pick it up to readjust, it's going to shoot the cursor way over if you lift it up because it's still registering because the sensitivity is so far with the laser and the range. If you want to reset your hand position, you go up and then back down and then readjust, or you just keep sliding your hand over instead of readjusting your position. There are right and left click on here, which works as advertised. You just have to kind of get used to it and test it out. And there's also the scroll wheel, which is just a little touchpad. It works pretty well for most things. Like, it's not going to be perfect and it's not going to be as smooth or precise as a nice trackpad on your iPad's keyboard, but you can still get a lot out of it. It can be a little bit jittery at times, which is, I think, to be expected from a plastic trackpad on a stylus, but for when you might need it for reading an article or editing a document on Google Drive or what have you, it's actually pretty functional. If I wanted to click and drag and select something and copy it, and then bring it over here and paste it, I can do that. Or if I wanted to right click something, I can pretty easily bring up the right click menu. And so it actually works really well for scrolling the document and clicking and dragging. Like, that's not really an issue. It works pretty well. So this was my biggest concern because this is where I use a mouse the most, I think, is editing documents such as on Google Docs. So it's really nice knowing that I'm very easily able to click and drag and highlight and move around and right click. It does work pretty well. So this is a really cool option. It allows you to combine a stylus and a mouse. So if you're somebody that has always wanted to have a trackpad on your iPad keyboard case, but you just didn't want to buy a new case, or you wanted a mouse with you, but you didn't want to carry around or buy a separate mouse, or you just wanted a complete upgrade and you didn't have a stylus already and you didn't have a mouse already for your iPad, there are a lot of different circumstances on why this combination is great. Now, I think you do have to keep in mind that this is not like an all-day solution. If you're somebody that needs a mouse for a continuous whole day or work day, this isn't going to be comfortable enough for that. But it is great for maybe a half hour or an hour, or just going to the library real quick, or editing a document in a coffee shop or a presentation or something like that. So if you're somebody that does use or will use a mouse but not all the time, then this is a really good solution. There kind of has to be a happy medium with how much you use a mouse and a trackpad in order to make this functional, but not too dependent on it, because it's not a complete replacement for a dedicated mouse and keyboard. And of course, what's great about this is that it just magnetically attaches to your iPad and you can take it everywhere, which is something that you couldn't really do with a dedicated mouse. And you can definitely save money. Like if you're gonna buy Apple's $300 Magic keyboard for the iPad plus an Apple Pencil, you know, that's $400, but this is $80. Now, of course, you might still want to get a keyboard case for your iPad, but then you can get one perhaps without a trackpad and then pair it with this, and instead of needing a $30 mouse and a $100 Apple Pencil, just spend $90 on this and save the space as well. But I think realistically, most people who are going to be getting this would be comparing it to like one of these $30 styli, in which case a $30 stylus and a $30 mouse is actually probably a little bit more productive than this and cheaper, but not as portable or convenient, and I think that's what you're paying for. And then last use case scenario, maybe you're using the stylus with your iPad and then the mouse with your Mac on the go. Anyway, I could see this being really useful on like an airplane or something. There's a lot of different circumstances where this could be useful. It's not a perfect product, and the build quality and battery life could be better, but for what it promises, it does deliver, I think. That was kind of a ramble. Let me know your thoughts on this product. I'll leave a link in the description if you want to check it out. And thanks for watching.